Good evening, everyone, and we are the Group 4, and we are here to present to you the different types of literary fiction. But before that, let us move to our learning objectives. At the end of this discussion, learners are able to determine the meaning of each literary fiction and discuss each fiction. And those fiction will be discussed to you by our reporters. And with that, let's call on Miss Irish Camille Carion to discuss about the manga.
So hi everyone. So I'm going to discuss manga. Manga originated from Japan and it is traditionally read from left to right like the comics, and the style of Japanese comic book or graphic novels that covers a wide range of genres such as romance, adventure, action, and etc. So the word manga originated from two kanji words, which means the first word is man and the second word is ga. So the first word means entertaining or exaggerated, while the word ga means image or a drawing. So as you can see, Osamu Tezuka is the father of manga, the godfather of manga, and the godfather of manga. So he got that title because of his impressive works and innovative contributions. So here are the examples of mangas. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the first example of manga is Naruto. So it is very famous. I think it is about a young ninja Naruto aspiring to become the strongest and the leader of his village. So it is written by Masaki Kishimoto. So the next manga here is Death Note. So it is written by Tsugumi Oba. So it follows a high school student who discovers notebook that can kill anyone. So its themes are morality, justice, and battle of wits between the protagonists and the detectives. So the last one is the very famous Doraemon. So it is published in 1969 by Fuhito Fuyo. So this story revolves around, of course, Nobita. So he is a clumsy student, a lazy boy that that was helped by a futuristic cat robot that becomes his friend. So we can see it in the televisions na uh, what you call this? Doraemon helped Nobita in his problems, family, friendship, and uh, I think its themes are friendship, of course, family, uh, problem solving, and impact of technology on our daily life. So it is known for its humor and heartwarming stories. So um, uh, Doraemon become his friend throughout that story. So that's all po. So the next topic is digital fiction.
Thank you very much for that informative lecture. Now we're going to talk about digital fiction. But first of all, what is a digital fiction? What you need to remember when you encounter the word digital fiction is that it is known as the triple media use. What do we mean by that? Triple media use basically means that in order for you to follow the chronological order of the story that you are currently having or currently reading, you have to first read the book or the physical material that the author had provided. And then after you read the book, you're going to watch a video or a movie that is connected to the book that you have read. And then afterwards, you're going to visit a website. Okay, so that is the meaning of the triple media use. You're going to use triple media in order for you to follow the chronological order of the story. Okay, now based on our presentation, digital fiction is written for and read from a computer, website, or based app. Okay, so now that we're currently living in this 21st century, different technological advancements have provided us some alternatives in having access to literature. Okay, why was it written and read from computer? Because basically digital fiction included some visual imageries, some mini games, some other text types that are actually can be just found through the use of digital technologies. Okay, so can we consider ebook as digital fiction? Actually, the answer is no, because technically, digital fictions uses more technical and more advanced features that includes mini games, moving images, some sounds which cannot be found in ebooks. Because actually, ebooks are just what you can consider as digital printed reading materials. Okay, are we clear with that? I hope we're clear with that. Yes. Okay. Another one. It is an exchange of interaction between readers and the literary piece. So digital fiction is not just a fiction or a story that you are going to read. Okay? Much more, you as a reader should be or will be interacting with the piece itself. Like for example, visual novels. Okay, visual novels are actually a kind of engaging literary fiction, because you as the reader are responsible for the outcome of what will be the fate of the protagonist or the characters in the story. Okay, you are bound to choose options, choices in those visual novels in order for the story to progress or to flow. Okay, are we clear with digital fiction? I hope we're clear with digital fiction, because I am going to provide you some examples of digital fiction. Okay, so I included four examples, and I am going to give you the synopsis of each examples and how each of them works as a digital fiction. Okay, first let's have The Clues by Robert Kenton. See, this type or this kind of work under digital fiction is a kind of thriller and actually a detective kind of literary piece, whereas it revolves around a murder crime. And then you will be given some words, and then you're going to decipher each of them. And if you manage to decipher each of them, of course, you're going to win the game. Okay, it's not just a story, but also an interactive game. Okay, this is a kind of detective story. That is Clues by Robert Kenton. Mhm. Next, we have Sorcery by Steve Jackson. So, just like what I've said earlier about the visual novels, this piece is actually much of it, whereas you're going to have to choose who will be your character, and along the way of the adventure, you will meet some epic monsters, and you're going to encountering traps and more. And that's actually one of the plots of this story. And just like visual novels, you as the reader is responsible to the fate of your character. Okay, you are the one who will be navigating your character. You are the one who will be combating or fighting those monsters in the story along the way as you progress, as you take your adventure in this story. Okay, so you you as the reader is actually the main character of this story. Okay, so that is Sorcery by Steve Jackson, not Rogers, Steve Jackson. Okay, now for the third example, we have Skeleton Creek by Patrick Carman. Okay, see, this is what I've mentioned earlier as one of the digital fiction that uses triple media use, whereas you're going to read a journal and then you're going to watch videos and then visit a website. For example, in this Skeleton Creek, I think Skeleton Creek, what I've read is it's a place and then it holds mystery, and those mysteries are actually written inside this journal right here. So these journals, you're going to read that journal, and as you read, you will be encountering some words that are actually passwords. Okay, and those passwords, you're going to use those as you visit the website of Sarah, where she posts some videos about the discoveries on the skeleton creek. Okay, so as you put the password that you've read in the journal, you'll be able to unlock the videos on the website. Okay, and then after that, then you're going to have the full story. You can follow the full story on what happened to Skeleton Creek. Okay, okay. Are we clear with this? You don't have a choice, Cheris. So let's move forward to the last example, which is Level 26 by Anthony E. Zucker. I think he is a German. I don't know. A piece which revolves around a crime scene that was done by a serial killer, and the main protagonist or the main character in this story is tasked to catch the culprit. Okay, so the main protagonist or the main character is named as Steve Dark. Okay, Steve Dark is an agent of the Black Ops, where his specialty is he can mimic what based on what he can mimic persons based on what he can observe. Okay, um but that specialty of his actually leads to the loss of his identity. Okay, so this is actually a kind of digifiction because you, as the reader, is also tasked to catch the culprit. Okay, you are being immersed. You are being one of the main characters in this story. Okay, so that is level 26 by Anthony E. Zucchia. I hope that you understood our digital fiction, and if you have any clarifications or questions, just talk to me and listen. Thank you.
Okay, and let's move on to another type of fiction, which is flash fiction. When we say flash, this is a action word that you need to be a fast, which means the flash fiction, this is a type of fiction that is defined as a very short story, or it is concise, which means that a flash fiction can be read by a reader in a one sitting. It also, unlike the short story, it has several pages. The flash fiction has a minimum numbers, and later on we will discuss how many numbers that can be included as a flash fiction. Also, flash fiction are the stories that can be short as a few words, which means that in flash fiction you need to be careful on the words that you will use, or it does not need a lot of flowery words to use. Also, it appears in 1990s. Its origin can be traced back in the ancient Greek fables, such as Aesop fables that famous back then, and short novels that were popular in 1930s, because that time technologies that uh, does not invented. That's why people loves to read, and they are used to read a story. It can be a novel, or some loves a short story, and some or most of the most of the people back then loves to read a flash fiction because they can read it and finish it in a one sitting. With that, let's move on to the characteristics. Number one is brevity. When we say brevity, it needs to be concise, which means that the flash fiction need to be complete in a one reading, which means it has a lot of elements included, but the author needs to be concise on the words or elements that used in writing this story because it has a limitations on the numbers of words that can be used. Number two, it has complete plot, which means that when you read a flash fiction, from the beginning up to the ending of the story, this is a complete. There is no hang at the end of the story, which means that you will know the ending of the story at the end when you after you read it. One of characteristic of a flash fiction also is it has a twist at the end or a surprise at the end of the story. This is not unlike this uh, fairy tales that have a happy ending, or you know the at the you know you will predict the ending when you read the story. But in flash fiction, it also has a twist, which means that the author used creativity to give a twist on the end of the story. And let's move on what the purpose of the flash fiction. Okay, the purpose is simply works within the same constraints, which means that it can be tricky when you are using words. It as an author, or if you want to create a flash fiction, you need to have a limitation because in flash fiction later on we will discuss how many numbers that need when you write a flash fiction story. It also have a rules, demand creativity and showcase talents. Due to word restriction, the author ha needs to use his or her creativity on using his word to show the complete scenario of a story, which means that you need to be creative on how you write or how the author want to describe a scene that is complete. It also encouraged the authors to extract more meaning from words than they ever imagined that is possible. Okay, and with that, let's move on to the categories. And here are the categories of flash fiction. In flash fiction writing, it needs to be maximum of 1,500 words and not more than that. But when it when the number is become less, this is not called a flash fiction anymore, but it will be called as a subtopic of a flash fiction. When you use a maximum of 750 words, this is called a sudden fiction. When you use 100 words, this is called a microfiction or a dribble. When we say twiterature, something like from the word Twitter and literature is combined, and it was used of maximum words of 280 characters. We also have dribble. It also known as a mini saga. It used a story that only use 50 words, and for the last one is the 6-word story, or this is the story that can be a one or two sentences. It depends on the author, and this is called a 6-word story. Any story with a single digit word count is a very category unto itself. And with that, let's move on to the example of a flash fiction. These are the example of the famous flash fiction written back then. We all know the story of Hansel and Gretel because this is something like a, what do you call that, child, do you call that childhood story, or yung mga babasahin natin nung tayo mga bata pa. Also, the Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Pigs. From my example, this is example of a story that can be read by the uh, learners or kids And also, this is a sample of flash fiction. And that's all for the flash fiction. And let's move on to another topic that will be discussed by Miss Arnan.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Nielsen. So, for that, let us focus first on the doodle fiction. So, what do you mean by doodle fiction? So, doodle fiction is a type of genre where the authors incorporates handwritten graphics in telling the story. So, in other words, it is a type of literary presentation where the author incorporates a doodle drawings or handwritten graphics in place of traditional folk. So since it has consists of drawings, it enhances the story and often adding on what we called on the humorous elements or the humorous effects. And also, if we're going to look deeper on the history of doodle fiction, so doodle fiction is a literary piece with doodling as its main element. So doodling has been around since the oldest cave painting 40,000 years ago. So back in those days when the time of prehistoric men, they made up a chicken like what we called itching. So they cave from the walls to communicate easily and tell a story. For example, they may have a some argument or to perform as such rituals. So the caveman rather uses stones and sticks to communicate or to draw abstract patterns, human hands and wild animals. So that is why doodle fiction came on. And if we're going to look deeper on the history again, when it comes to the free revolutionary word in America, so a group of British military officers created a song, what we called Yankee Doodle. So Yankee Doodle, it is a song wherein they sang it. So it is the same on do you know the nursery rhyme Jack and Jill? So it is the same from the song Yankee Doodle that is made from the Revolutionary War in America. So the British coined the term Yankee Doodle to mean that America fools that how the word doodle emerged to convey simpleton or fool. And when it comes to next slide please. So when it comes to the elements or structure, when we talk about the elements of doodle fiction, so the main elements of doodle fiction is simply the doodle. So it is commonly a full of humorous effect using a handwritten text and doodles, as simply as that. And when we talk about the structure, so structure, the main structure of doodle fiction is it is follow a novel story, a type of narration. So take note of that. And here are the example of doodle fiction. Next slide, please. So here are the example again of the doodle fiction. So first is entitled Doodle Dog by Eric Shelter. And the next one is The Diary of Wimpy Kid Dog Days by, it is written by Jeff Kenny. So as you have noticed to our example, the books are more on and a lettering type and a drawing as simply as that. So we can also see how aesthetic the author to draw a doodle fiction because they uses a graphics because it uses a hand drawn and digital editing. So just like the other type of fiction or literary works from the different authors, we also have the purpose of the doodle fiction. Next slide, please. So we also have a two purpose of doodle fiction. So first one is to entertain. So just like the other novel or fiction, the purpose of doodle fiction is to entertain or to give a humorous effect just like the comic strip. And also, the most important thing is doodle fiction, it helps the visual learners or readers because It is very obvious that the purpose of the author is to help visual learners or readers because they're good at images and it would be easy for them to understand the context. So, if I will going to differentiate doodle fiction to the other novels type, when it comes to doodle fiction, it is more on to a text heavy than manga and graphic novels and closer to the what we called frost fiction than comics in format. So while the drawing and pictures are made to help enhance the story to add a humorous elements that will help to attract or to make interesting for the readers or viewers. And that is the doodle fiction. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Cecily Villarubio and now we're going to tackle about the science fiction. So, I know that some of you has an idea what is a science fiction, but first let just refresh your minds, and to those who still don't know what is science fiction, let's talk about that today. Okay, so science fiction is, although the term science fiction was not used until about 1930, science fiction tales have been told since before the invention of writing. So, this science fiction uh, is already in the present times during or before the writings of the fiction or the writings. The invention of the writings of the story or different kinds of stories. So, one of the earliest science fiction writers was Lucian of Samosata, who around 100 BC. So, one of the first science fiction writers we have is Lucian, and she is around 100 BC. Okay, so she wrote a fantasy about journey to the moon. Modern science fiction began to take shape in the 19th century. So, first, in the year BC or the 100 BC, it all talks about the moon or it talks about the galaxy. But then, during the 90s, the modern science fiction has begun. Okay, so okay, we have the next slide. So, science fiction is defined loosely a fiction that deals with the impact of science and technology on the world. So, sometimes the technology is real, sometimes it is entirely imagined, and sometimes it has been imagined by an author and then brought to reality by scientists. Science fiction themes often warn of the potential for disaster when technology is abused. So, it is basically science fiction. It talks about the science and technology. For example, do you know the movie Next Gen Z? That movie is all about a robot or the high-tech robots who can do all the things that a human can do. And also, this science fiction, it is pinapakita niya yung magiging epekto ng technology and science sa atin if we are going to abuse it. Do you know it? Do you imagine it? Rather. This science fictions is basically talks about the effects on the technology and the science that is being abused by the people. So many sample movies about science fiction is talks about, especially yes, the technologies and science, especially when the environment, for example, is an environment who's abused by the people, then doon na mangyayari na magkakaroon ng disaster. So, that is science fiction. And sometimes, kagaya nga ng sinabi dito is, sometimes the technology is real because, yes, we know that technology is very real, especially in our generation today, in our reality. And sometimes, it is entirely imagined since some of the movies have the masyadong upgraded na technologies that hindi pa siya nangyayari ngayon, and then um, may posibilidad na mangyari yun sa hinaharap. And ayun yung sinasabi sa atin ng science fiction, that it makes us realize what are going to happen if we're going to abuse those things, those technologies, and those environment. You got it? Okay. So for next slide. Okay, so next slide we have the literature of change, rather, the literature of change. So it's often said that science fiction is the literature of change. When a culture is undergoing a lot of changes due to the scientific advances and technological developments and expects to undergo more, it's hardly surprising if stories about these changes become popular as a way of expressing people's feelings about change. So yeah, since today we can relate it today. We have our culture, but then it changed and as time goes by it changed because our world is evolving, right? We have now advanced technologies. For example, we Filipinos um, are kilala bilang isang magsasaka, 'di ba? Or magsasaka, or any pabrika ng mga products like mangoes. And now, 'di ba, before that is part of our culture, but because of the technology, because of the high-tech technologies, maraming tao na nawawala ng trabaho, and that is part of the effect of these technologies na naa-abuse natin. And nagkakaroon siya ng epekto sa literature natin. Why? Because yung mga bagay na dapat natin, na ginagawa natin is hindi na natin nagagawa. Okay? So, note that the changes may be in our ability to control the world or just in our understanding of it. For example, some post-Holocaust na portray cultures that understand and control less of the world than we do. The scientific elements consist of our understanding of the world and of how it arose out of our world. So, other stories are offer future technologies that we can hope for based present-day science but haven't developed yet. So, kagaya nga na sinabi ko kanina, sa mga ibang science fiction stories or stories, may mga technologies na hindi pa present sa life natin ngayon, but nandun na sa movie. Kasi, yung sinasabi nga ng science fiction is yung kung ano yung mangyayari. Kaya nga, it is fiction, di ba? So, it is not based on the reality, but yung kwento is pwede siyang mangyari. Pwede siyang mangyari in real life because sa mga nangyayari ngayon in our present life na pwede nating i-abuse yung culture, yung technologies, and the science and the environment. Pagka in-abuse yung environment, what will happen? Of course, magkakaroon ng disaster like floods, high tide, di ba? So yet others go beyond this to dazzle us with future science that differs from what is now believed, but they retain some recognizable elements of the world we live in, so we can at least believe that the world depicted in the story might someday come. Okay, did you get it? Okay, next. Okay, next. So we have the elements of science fiction. First, of course, we have science. Next, we have technology and invention. And we also have the future and the remote past, including all-time travel stories. All-time travel stories is may ko-connect din natin siya sa science, since hindi especially when in the story they are using technologies to time travel. Alam niyo yan, 'di ba? Okay. So next we have the extrapolation. Next is scientific method. Other places, planets, dimension, etc. during beauty visitors from above. It also includes aliens. Di ba? Usong-uso yung mga palabas na may alien. Kagaya na lang sa um, sa mga nanonood ng K-drama dyan, My Love from the Star, di ba? Si Mateo though is from the space, which is he is an alien. So that is part of a science fiction. So catastrophes or natural man-made. So a story with at least three of the above elements is generally perceived to be science fiction. Stories with two elements were borderline. So stories with one or no elements were not science fiction. So doon sa mga nabanggit or dyan sa mga nandito na um, elements of science fiction, pag wala dyan, so, sa mga nandyan, it means that is not science fiction, okay? So next is more elements of science fiction. Time setting in a future, in alternative timelines, or in a historical past that contradicts known facts or history, the archaeological record. So, characters that includes aliens, sabi ko nga kanina, aliens, mutants, androids, or humanoid robots. So, hindi niyo ba napapansin na ang daming bagong mga movies ngayon na about robots? And yung mga, although yes, they are not hindi pa sila nagagawa ngayon, pero hindi natin alam, 'di ba? Ang daming mga gumagawa ng mga high-tech na na robots ngayon, and hindi natin alam kung baka meron na diyan, 'di ba? Meron pa nga, 'di ba, sa balita pa nga in real life, of course. May balita pa nga na you can have your baby by using technologies. Makakapili ka na ng itsura ng bata, ng ugali ng bata, ng mga katangian niya, ng skills niya, di ba? So that can really affect our literature. Why? Do you know that God is part of our literature, and yung pagiging makadiyos nating mga Filipino, di ba? Okay, so that is also part of science fiction. Kasi yung technology yan and na-abuse talaga siya pagka nare-reach niya na yung limit. Okay? So next are futuristic technologies such as ray guns, teleportation machines, and humanoid computers. So kagaya ng sinabi kanina na about sa ang tawag doon, time travel. Yeah, the time travel. Nagagamit yung time travel because of the machines and technologies, di ba? Sa mga movies na napanood nyo, may mga napanood na ba kayo ng movies na time travel, di ba? They are using technologies. Okay, so next is a scientific principle that are new or that contracted accepted laws of nature, for example, time travel, wormholes, or faster than light travel. New and pwede din natin dito yung new and different political or social system. Example is disposition or post-scarcity or post-apocalyptic. Paranormal abilities such as mind control, telepathy, telekinesis, and teleportation. Okay? Other universes or dimensions and travel between them. So, like, San Goku. Diba? Nagte-teleport sila from universe to from the planet to planet to the universe. That is also science fiction. Okay? So we have the key themes. By the way, do you understand? Do you have sample movies in your mind? Okay, if meron, then naiintindihan nyo yung discussion natin. Okay, thank you. we have the key themes in sci-fi, okay? The first theme concerns the contention between the individual and the larger society, explores contemporary issues such as individual rights, social demands, or culture coming under increasing surveillance, popular culture, and rampant anti-intellectualism. So the second theme we will explore looks into rapidly evolving computer technology and an artificial intelligence. Kagaya nangyayari ngayon, ang dami ng AI, di ba? As a teacher, as a educator, medyo masama to sa kasi we are expecting students to mm, build or to come up with their own ideas, but instead they are just using AIs and copy and paste, then pass. And makikita din natin yung epekto nun. Since the science fiction is um, um, giving a warning to people what are going to happen if we still continue abusing those technologies. Okay.